Hi there, my name is Irene, and in this video, I would like to walk you through the selection process for a computer to use for construction software. We are going to be covering the differences between a desktop and a laptop and what are the reasons why you would choose either. We're also going to discuss how to choose a computer based on how tech savvy you are. And we're going to discuss a little bit what are the parts of the computer, at least the essential ones that you should need to know and understand in order to choose a computer that best serves your need. So let's get to it. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to tackle is the question of a Windows computer versus a Mac computer. And unfortunately, although there are software that is compatible with Mac computer, for some reason, the vast majority of construction software is either not designed first and foremost for Mac, or it's not available at all. So for example, with something like SketchUp, you're going to see, or AutoCAD, you're going to see that the Mac version is slightly different than the Windows version. And in my experience, I find that it is a little bit more cumbersome to work with. Some commands are missing for some reason. On the other hand, if we talk about something like Revit, there is no Revit for Mac. That's the end of the story. So unfortunately, the first thing to understand is that if you're going to be working with construction software, the majority of software on the industry are not compatible with Mac or don't work ideally with Mac. So the option is going to be a computer that runs Windows. Once we have that out of the way, the next question is, okay, so desktop or laptop? And the thing is that both of these options have pros and cons depending on what you're looking for. The main advantage of a desktop is that it is very easy and relatively inexpensive to make upgrades because it's a box that contains the parts. So you can upgrade any of those parts at any given point without having to buy an entire new machine. So you could choose to upgrade your graphic card every year or every couple of years while the rest of your computer remains the same. It does require a little bit of computer understanding, but it is a very good option. That being said, it is stock at home. So, your very powerful custom computer is going to stay at home, and whenever you move, it's going to stay behind, which is what brings us to laptops. The main advantage of a laptop is the fact that it is mobile. You can take it with you to work, you can take it with you to class, you can take it with you home. It's one thing that carries all of your information, so you don't have to worry about reinstalling software in multiple computers or like, oh, I left my file in this computer and now I'm working on my laptop. It's just one little machine that you bring up with yourself everywhere. Now, the problem with this option is that you cannot upgrade a laptop. A laptop is like a closed little sandwich, and if in a couple of years your laptop falls behind in terms of like the edge of technology and what is needed, like the system requirements for whatever software you're going to be running, you're basically going to be out of luck. So the pro is mobility. The con is that it has a life expectancy, and when things upgrade, you're not going to be able to upgrade your laptop. Okay, so my recommendation is that for students, it is much better to have a laptop. It is just more convenient, and you're not going to be modeling like Avatar. So like you don't need the most powerful computer in the market. Now, with that out of the way, okay, let's say that you're going to go for a laptop. What kind of laptop, or same thing applies if you're doing a desktop, but let's focus on laptop for a minute. So you want to get a laptop. Which laptop should you be getting? So here I'm going to spread it into two kind of like spectrums, ends of the spectrum. And this is going to be based on how computer savvy you are. From like, I don't know anything about computers and I don't want to learn to, I'm a computer expert. If you're a computer expert, don't worry, we're going to get there eventually. If you are like not computer savvy at all, that's fine. Just get a gaming laptop. Gaming laptops are designed to perform very fast calculations and to render very high quality graphics. So it is very likely that any gaming laptop that you choose will have the things that you need to run construction software. The only negative of this option is that gaming laptops usually also have other things that you don't need. So for example, they may have like a special like internet connection or a monitor with like a refresh rate or a special sound system, and all of these things are going to add cost to your laptop that are not things that you actually need. But if you don't want to get your hands dirty with IT lingo, just get a gaming laptop and that should get the job done. Bonus points if you get a gaming laptop with a dedicated graphic card. So this is what we call a GPU. We're going to talk about all of these elements in a second. But again, if you don't want to get your hands dirty, gaming laptop, dedicated graphic card. That's all you need to know. Okay? So now let's say that, okay, you're not tech savvy and you don't want to become like a computer expert, but you want to have a little bit more of an understanding of what you should be looking for when you're searching for that laptop. Maybe you want to narrow down your gaming laptop options. So when it comes to getting a computer to work with construction software and 3D modeling and rendering software, there's basically a few components of the computer that are going to be essential. And that is going to be the CPU, the GPU, and RAM. There's other things, of course, but these three are going to be the pillars upon which like your computer is going to stand to the task or fall apart. So first of all, we have the CPU. So the CPU is basically the brain of the computer. It's basically the one that tells the computer what to do when. Basically, the more powerful your CPU is, the more activities is going to be able to handle at once. And again, construction software tends to be quite intense. Now, we're going to do a little search here so you can see kind of like what I'm talking about. But basically, the more CPU, the better. Up next, we have RAM. So RAM is basically your computer's short-term memory. This basically means that it's the part of your computer that is in use whenever your computer is running calculations. So you can think about it almost like it's, yes, it's the brain of the computer, but it's the brain that is dedicated to the now and immediate calculations and actions. Once again, same as with the CPU, the more RAM, the better, obviously. And then finally, we have the GPU, not CPU, GPU. This is basically your graphic card. Now, your graphic card operates very similarly to your RAM in the sense that it's basically doing these short-term calculations. The difference is that your GPU is dedicated specifically to graphics. So what's going to happen is that when you're doing things like a rendering, your computer is going to tap first into that GPU resource before it taps into the RAM. And the thing is that normally some people can get, depending on the kind of software, you might be able to get away with an integrated graphic card, which is like, it's not the same thing. It's a little bit lower end, so it's a little bit more economic. But if you want to run, for example, real-time rendering software such as Enscape or Twinmotion, they will not run if you don't have a dedicated graphic card, okay? So those are the three main things that you want to look at: CPU, RAM, and GPU. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do a little demonstration of how you could search for any of these items when you're searching for a computer online. So I'm going to be sharing my screen and we're going to see how that looks. Okay, see you in a sec. All right, so we are on an internet browser right now. This is Chrome. It can be Firefox, Safari, whatever, doesn't matter. And basically what we're going to do is we're going to go search for a computer. You can check Amazon, Best Buy, you know, all the greatest hitters. I personally prefer to search in like computer dedicated stores because they have more variety. There's two websites that I really like. One is called Canada Computers. Yes, this is a these are Canadian sites. So this is because I'm in Canada. So Canada Computers is one of them. I really like them. They have a lot of variety and they are like focused on computer parts. And the other one is called New Egg Canada. I also really like this one. So let's actually go on New Egg. Now, one thing that you're going to see is that when I give specifications here, I'm not going to tell you like, oh, you need like this many cores for your CPU, or you need specifically this graphic card. And the reason for that is that technology moves at a really rapid pace. So the thing is that if I give you a specific set of specs to choose right now, what's going to happen is that, you know, in a year, this video is going to be obsolete and I'm going to have to do it all over again. And I really don't want to do it because I'm kind of lazy. So instead, what I want to teach you is how to search, how to figure out what is it that you need. So we are in Newegg, and what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go for computer systems. And again, we're going to be working with laptops, notebooks. So if I click here, you're going to see that on the left side, they have a couple of options. And again, most sites have those options at this point. So see, for example, I can just go for a gaming laptop, and that is going to kind of like narrow down a lot of my options. So let's say we're going to choose this guy here. And what you're going to see is that immediately here at the top is giving me some options for memory. But what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to be looking here on the side for like what are the options that we want to look for. So see, first of all, we have our GPU. Show more. There's two main GPU brands out there. One is NVIDIA and the other one is AMD. Both of them are good, but you're going to see most often than not NVIDIA. Also, NVIDIA has a lot of partnerships with a lot of different software, and a lot of them is these kind of construction software. So I find that usually having a computer with an NVIDIA card tends to work more smoothly than having AMD, but to be entirely honest, they're very, very similar. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to check on just like the NVIDIA, and GeForce is part of the NVIDIA brand. So I'm going to choose all of the GeForce. This is really not going to narrow it down that much for me. So we're going to apply. And then what we're going to do, see all of the options, then you have your CPU. So CPU, you're going to see that they usually refer to like cores, or like these numbers, they usually refer to the number of cores. So you can think about cores as like the brain splitting. So the more splits the brain has, the more tasks it can handle at the same time. So usually number of cores higher, better. So let's say that, for example, we're going to set it up here to Intel iCore Core i9 and i7. You also have AMD Ryzen. So again, this is one of those things that like both of them are good. It's really just a matter of like preference. So I'm familiar with Intel, so I just go with Intel. Let's see what else. Yeah, no, just iCore 7 and i9 core. All right, so that is my GPU, my CPU, and the last thing is going to be RAM. Now, RAM, where is it? There you go, RAM. Now, RAM can, it's a big number from 16 to 128. RAM is one of those things that is going to get exponentially expensive. So you don't necessarily need 128. You can also think about these in terms of future-proofing your machine. So you can basically wager on one side, you have how expensive your machine is going to be, and on the other side, you have how long that laptop is going to last you because you got the most cutting-edge technology. If you get a cheaper laptop, there is a chance that the technology that it comes with will be obsolete in just a couple of years. If you get a more expensive laptop, it's going to buy you more years of relevancy. So I don't think you need 128 is what I'm trying to say here. But let's say that we're going to choose 16, 32, and 48, okay? Just for the sake of it. Other things are really irrelevant. So for example, your screen size doesn't really matter. Keep in mind that the bigger your screen size, the heavier your laptop is going to be. That's all you really need to care about. Manufacturers, there are many. I would say like Asus laptops and MSI are very good. Lenovo is also fine. I don't like Dell. Those are my personal opinions, which I'm not going to show up down anyone's throat. Condition. Now, this is an important one. If you are trying to save up, but you still want to get a very good quality computer, my recommendation would be that you choose a refurbished laptop. So refurbished is not really secondhand, but it's also not new. It's somewhere in between. So my understanding is that a refurbished laptop is a laptop that has been purchased by someone. They open it, there was some kind of error, and then they send it back to factory, and the factory fixed the laptop. So the laptop is fine. It works great, but they cannot sell it as brand new because it was opened and repaired. So then they sell it as refurbished. I've had refurbished laptops in the past. They work great. So I'm going to choose here refurbish and apply. And then let's see if there's anything else of interest. Again, all of these other things are kind of like fancy, bougie, unnecessary. The three most important ones are, again, going to be CPU, GPU, and RAM. So once I've set up these options here, you're going to notice that this is going to narrow down. So let's see, what I like to do when I do this is sort them from highest price first, so we can, all get shocked, and then sort it to like lowest price. So if I go now and I sort from highest price, you can find a laptop for, no, that's really cheap because these are refurbished, that's why. So see, this is a really good laptop. In fact, I think this is very similar to the laptop that I'm working on right now, and it works great. Is it like the most powerful machine in the universe? No, but it's going to get the job done. So you can expect to pay like, about $2,200 Canadian in the year 2024. I don't know how long this video is going to last on the internet. Or if we go to the lowest price, you're going to see that on the lowest, we are talking about close to $1,000. So unfortunately, you're not going to be able to get a cheap laptop for construction documentation, rendering, like construction software, just because of the nature of the software. But like you don't have to spend $5,000 as I am demonstrating right now. So now let's say, so these are the basics. So now let's say that like, how do you know exactly what you need? Like, let's say that you really want to narrow this down. So the best practice here is to understand what are the requirements of the different software that you're going to be working with. So the software that you are going to be using in while learning in the industry, for the most part, again, it may vary depending on what company you end up working with, but it is very likely that there's going to be some AutoCAD, there's going to be some SketchUp, there might be some 3ds Max or Rhino, Revit for sure, or maybe ArchiCAD, and then some kind of photorealistic rendering engines such as V-Ray, Lumion, Enscape, or Twinmotion. So my recommendation is that you want to see what are the system requirements for the most demanding of those programs. And again, the most demanding software is always going to be real-time rendering. Because again, it has to do a lot of really wild calculations. So what you can do is see what are the system requirements for those real-time rendering engines. So let's say that I'm going to search for Enscape. So I'm going to go Enscape system requirements, okay? And you can see that here they have a little list. See, NVIDIA, AMD, 4 gig of RAM. So now we can start seeing what those requirements are, but I'm going to expand here. Operating system, don't worry, don't bother. What we want to see is graphic card, NVIDIA or AMD. It's kind of the same as I said, dedicated GPU with 4 gig of RAM that supports Vulkan. If you want to go with NVIDIA GeForce specifically, you can go with the GTX 900 series. So let's go back to our Canada computer, sorry, to our new egg, and narrow down our graphic card requirement, because now we know that it needs to have at least 4 gig of RAM, and if it's GTX, it needs to be at least a 900 series. So if I go here, let's see, 4000, RTX is better than GTX, so we're going to keep those bad boys in. GeForce, RTX, GTX 16. Oh, these are all good. Let's say that we're going to remove the NVIDIA GeForce and apply, because I cannot see the RAM on it. Okay, so that's narrowing down things a little bit. The next thing is RAM. 4 gig, and like I think like the option that we were checking here was minimum 16, so you do not need the 48. That's a little bit wild. So let's check off the 48. Let's leave the 32 for funsies. And then finally, GPU, read more info. Let's see what else it's going to give me. Yeah, so see, you even have minimum requirements, recommended requirements, and requirements if you're going to be running VR. So let's go with the minimum. Yeah, so GPU 4 gig of RAM, RTX, so that's kind of what we chose. We don't need additional software, and that's it. As you can see, something like this isn't asking me for example, CPU. It's only asking me for GPU and RAM. So just to see another option, let's say that we're going to go for Revit. So we're going to go Revit system requirements. Revit is also a pretty heavy-duty software. So there you go, see? So for example, for the CPU, Revit does require a CPU, but it's telling me that it needs to be at least 4 cores, ideally 6+ cores. And again, if we expand here, you're going to see that it's usually going to spread it between like minimum and like required. Aha, see? So Revit requires more RAM than Enscape. So I can come here and just double check. Yep, at least 16, that's good. Then let's see. CPU, multi-core, single or multi-core, that's fine, that's all good, great. Yeah, that's it. So with that, we have narrowed down the settings of our laptop search. And you can see that with those settings, the minimum laptop is still $1,000, and the highest price would still probably be around the 2,000. Okay, so that is how you can search for a laptop to purchase. And with that, we have reached the end of this video. So again, to summarize, first of all, don't get a Mac laptop. They're very nice, they're lovely, but you're gonna have issues in the construction industry. Number two, if you are choosing between a laptop and a desktop, I recommend a laptop. It is a little bit more convenient. And if you can only buy one of the two, it is a better option. Number three, if you are not tech savvy and you're not interested in becoming tech savvy, just buy a gaming laptop with a dedicated graphic card. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. If you are a little bit more tech savvy, then you want to make sure that you are checking for high CPU, RAM, and GPU options. And if you are very, very tech savvy, you can actually go into the system requirements for these specific softwares, see what are the minimum, maximum, ideal requirements, and then narrow down your search based on that. The software that you are going to encounter is going to be one or all of the following: AutoCAD, SketchUp, 3ds Max and or Rhino, Revit, and then some kind of photorealistic rendering engine such as V-Ray, Enscape, Lumion, or Twinmotion. So you can use the system requirements of those programs to figure out like what kind of laptop you need. One last thing, get yourself a mouse. It doesn't have to be like the bougiest mouse. You just need it to be a mouse with 2 buttons and the little wheel in the middle. And this is because most of these softwares map their movement to this kind of mouse. So if you're using your laptop pad or you're using the bean from Mac, you're not going to be able to access those options. And it's going to be really, really frustrating. It doesn't need to be the fanciest mouse in the world. It can be like a $20 mouse, or you can get one of those fancy bougie ergonometric ones that are going to delay you getting carpal tunnel. But either way, you want to make sure you get a mouse. And with that, we have reached the end of this video. I hope you find that helpful. If you have any questions, by all means, feel free to reach out. But otherwise, I will see you when I see you. Have a good one. Bye.